Hey everyone, I'm Julia Jett, and welcome to the Spiritually Minded Entrepreneur Summit. Today, I'm joined by Rob Z. Wentz, and I am so grateful that you're joining us today. Rob is a leadership and communication expert. So, with Rob, leaders find clarity, they take action, and they succeed with integrity, making them the expert in their industry. Rob is also the founder of the Unstuck Movement podcast that I got to be on that. Thank you so much, Rob. It was so much fun. He is a best-selling author, a social media marketer, and strategist. You could even call him a guru if you want to. He is an award-winning radio personality, a speaker, and an influencer. I'm so grateful to have you here today, Rob. Thank you.
Of course, Julia, I'm so happy to be here to get a chance to chat with you again. I couldn't turn it down, so thanks.
I'm grateful you're here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure, a little bit about me. Well, I am a father of two. I have a 10-year-old and a 3-month-old. Recently remarried last year. Uh, I spent 20 years in radio broadcasting. Most of my life was in the radio broadcasting world, really learning how to communicate unknowingly throughout the years. Um, and I started a digital marketing company after that back in 2017. And then from there, I parlayed that into coaching. And I just knew I love to communicate with people. I love to connect with people. And I love helping people come out of their shell, learning how to become better communicators, because that was my journey, right? So if I had to like give my journey in a nutshell, it was like learning how to be me. Like this, one of the things I talk about is like the bold art of being yourself, like how to be really, truly you. And I think that so many people have a version of them that's stuck inside of them. If you're a people pleaser, especially, I was a people pleaser, right? So there's always me trying to be who I thought other people needed or wanted me to be. So I never really knew who I was. So I spent many years learning how to become a better communicator, learning how to truly be me. But on just my personal life, I take jujitsu. I love jujitsu. I love the podcast, one of my favorite things to do. I'm a man of faith, so I'm very involved in my church, and I just really enjoy great conversation. I love connecting with people, and I love bringing the best out of the people. And my leadership coaching and communication coaching blends right into that, right? So I love being able to see people communicate the way they want to. Because if we can communicate in life the way we want to, then everything around us changes, right? If we can be more in tune with ourselves and what we need to say, then our life changes and we become so much more than we ever knew that we could. So I won't say any more. I'll leave it with that.
Well, I'm great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And when how did you how did you notice that you needed to work on your communication?
Well, man, there's so many different times in my life where I was like, boy, I need to be able to say that better. I think that one of the big things for me was throughout just growing up, knowing that I should say something about something and never being able to like get the words that come out of my mouth, whether that was asking a girl out on a date or if that was standing up for somebody that needed to be stood up for, or saying something in a family setting, addressing like the elephant in the room. Like there's so many times where we have that like I know that somebody needs to say this and nobody's saying it, right? And I always wanted to be the person who would say it, but never had the courage to say it. And so I can't really necessarily point to one time in my life where that happened and it stands out, but I can just say in general that happened so often in my life. And I think we've all had those instances where I was like, this needs to be different. I need to do this in a different way. And it's funny, I got into radio broadcasting. I was in radio broadcasting for 20 years. I didn't realize why I was in radio. And as I got out of it, I realized years later it was so I could communicate better because I didn't know how to talk to people. And and when I was in radio, I could sit in a room by myself and talk to thousands of people and nobody could see me. So it was like a safe place, right? Before safe places, I think were even talked about as being safe places. And so that taught me over the years of just learning how to communicate what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I want to say.
Mm.
And I think I used that in a selfish way for many years. So turning that around and using that in a service to others kind of way is what I really try to do now.
Mm. And how can we well, how can we use communication to become better leaders?
Well, think about it like this. And not everybody strives for leadership. A lot of people don't want to be leaders. I didn't want to be a leader when I was younger. It's like, why would I want to be in charge of anything? Then I'm responsible for it. Less responsibility, the better, right? But if we can wrap our head around the fact that if I'm not leading my life, then something else is. If I'm not directing where I'm going, then something else or somebody else is. It can't be any other way. So if I'm not intentional about how I'm leading myself, then I can't be intentional in how I lead anybody else. And if I'm not intentional about how I'm leading myself, then something else is directing me and I'm just unaware of it. And so the easiest way to become a better leader is to be able to communicate what it is that you want to have happen or what you feel should have happen, or to inspire other people to communicate what they feel needs to happen. And communication ties into leadership perfectly, I think, especially in the instance like you're working for a business. Maybe you're the manager of a company and you have people underneath you, and you're out there every day telling everybody what to do. That is not an effective way to use communication into leadership. The effective way to do that is to build up and inspire other people to recognize their strengths, recognize their skill sets, giving the people that you work for or the people in your life, giving them the ability to have the giving them the ability and the responsibility that they can make decisions for themselves. Because once I empower somebody that they're capable, once I empower somebody that they're enough and that they are able to do the things that I might feel like I want them to do. But if I can empower them to come to those decisions for themselves, if I can empower them to be like, well, I think I know what to do and I'm going to do it and take that action, take that responsibility, they're going to all, you're going to become a leader in your own right by taking that responsibility. You're going to become a leader in your own right because you're making the decisions, you're taking action, and then you have to face the consequences, good or bad, that comes along with that, right? But none of that can happen if I don't communicate effectively. None of that can happen if I don't ask people the right questions. And none of that can happen if I don't lead myself and ask myself the right questions. So we can't, you can't disconnect communication from leadership. It's literally impossible because we are communicating whether we like it or not all day long with ourselves and with others. And that begins with our thoughts and what we think and say to ourselves. And that is like the beginning of communication for each of us individually on a moment by moment basis.
Hmm. And how, how would we catch ourselves, maybe if we're not communicating with ourselves and finding a way of leadership within so that we can help others? And goodness, it makes me think too about what you were saying about how some people they don't want to step into that role of leader. I know for a long time, if you said anything, uh, be a leader in this way to me, I'd be like, woo, please don't. And I didn't even realize that it had something to do with responsibility. There was just so much fear in that word for me. Apart from responsibility, just being the one who goes first, was very scary for me. But there's so many ways that we lead in our lives anyway, aside from only, being at the head of a business. But there's other smaller ways that we lead our lives too, whether it's just in the smallest sense of deciding what we're going to do in a day. That takes leadership as well. Or if we have a family like you do. So what are some of the ways that somebody might be able to soften that leadership role so that they might be able to step into it, and maybe, like you said, starting with themselves?
I think the best place to start is my core value is integrity, right? To be integrous. And I never had integrity when I was younger, and that led me down many bad paths, a lot of addiction issues and being with the wrong people. I was never with bad people, but we were all just kind of lost in our own right. I think that you shared your story on my podcast. You could relate.
I'm with you, yeah.
And what I realized as time went on and I started to learn what integrity meant, and I started to learn what, like, leadership meant. I was like, wow, I was always breaking promises to myself. And so I
Mm,
think the place we can start when we feel bad about ourselves, it's usually because we've broken a promise to ourselves that we said, I'm going to do this thing or I'm going to act this way. And then we don't do that. We
mm,
go against that. And then from that, we say negative things to ourselves, right? And I'm sure you've been this way. I know I still can be this way. I was this way today that if I would talk to myself the way I talk to other people, I probably wouldn't have friends, you
yeah.
know? So why do I talk to myself like this? Well, I talk to myself this way because I'm not keeping promises to myself that I know I should be keeping. Now, we got to give ourselves grace and give other people grace, right? You give yourself grace because nobody's perfect. We all fall short. We're all broken in some sort of way, and that's okay. But at the same time, I know I'm being my best self when I'm keeping promises to myself. I tell myself I'm going to do certain things like exercise or wake up and pray or uh, show up for somebody how I want to show up for them. Because internally, we all know, I'd like to think, we all have values or moral values where I know how I want to show up for people in my life. Like people that are close to me, but also just random strangers. Even I always think of the example of driving in the car. I'll cuss somebody out in the car. It's so stupid. Like, why am I yelling at this person? They can't hear me. I don't know them. They don't probably even know they did anything wrong. It's so useless. And that anger, you'll carry that with yourself, and this judgment, you'll carry it, right? So little time. There's a great book. Michael Singer, he wrote this. I forget if it was The Untethered Soul, but I remember reading that book, and he used driving as a great example of constantly letting go of your judgments towards people. Because when you drive a car, man, you are always judging everybody else. You're the perfect driver. Everybody else is going too slow or too fast, and they're not matching who you are. And so it's a great opportunity to let those judgments go. And I think that's where we have to start. We have to start with, first of all, giving ourselves grace, but also holding ourselves to a standard and constantly checking ourselves to make sure that we are living up to who we in our minds know we can be, because we all have a standard for ourselves. And as we follow that standard, you're going to be more happy with yourself. The more happy you are with yourself, the more you're going to be happy and permissive of other people around you to make mistakes,
Mm.
because none of us are perfect, but not even close. So I think that's the best place to start is, are you keeping your promises to yourself? Do you find yourself in a bad mood? Okay, why? Usually that has something to do with somebody else hurt you or you hurt yourself. If you hurt yourself, how did you hurt yourself? What promise did you break? And if you were to keep that promise, what would you do differently? And then practice that. Write that down and put that into practice every day. And that's going to build your self-esteem. That'll build your self-worth, and that'll build your integrity. And I think that's the building block.
Mm. That's an awesome exercise. I love that. And I wonder, is there ever a time where you felt maybe like a little misaligned in your business, and how did you find realignment?
Dear Lord. Yeah, I'm misaligned. Like, I think every day there's a little bit of misalignment. Like, oh, I'm not quite there yet. Right. So it's like giving myself the grace to be like, oh, I'm not there yet, but also constantly pushing yourself. It's like being satisfied where you are, but constantly pushing yourself. I don't know if you've experienced this for yourself, Julia, but I've experienced this many times where I feel like personal me and professional me are two different people. And I
Mm,
don't know how to make professional me be like personal me, because I love personal me. Personal me, I honestly, I'm very happy with who I am as a person. But when it comes to professional me, for some reason, I have to be like different. I have to act different. I have to present myself differently. I've got to like put on a mask, a bit of a mask. And so I think for me, that is the overarching general disconnect that I'm constantly working on making better. The more I can be the personal me in my professional setting, the better everything gets. And I
mm,
don't know how else that's the best way to put it, because there's no reason why it should be any different. And if somebody would, the incorrect thought in my head is like, well, somebody's not going to like me if I act like myself in business. But unless you're a scumbag. I mean, if you're if you're not a good person in your personal life, that might you might have to like that's where you got to start, right? But if you feel like if you're happy with yourself and you know that you have a good heart and you're a good person and you want to do the right things, then let yourself be you. And I think that's the hardest thing. Like I said earlier, the bold art of being yourself. That's been the hardest thing for me is letting me be me
Mm,
and being okay with that. And that's a constant journey, but also it's I can see victories every day in that. And it makes me so happy when I can be myself and things work out. And it's like, see, this is how it's supposed to go, but you just got to work at it.
yeah. What are a couple ways that you were able to maybe have like a mindset shift so that you could feel okay with being yourself and stepping in and still stepping into that role of leader in your business?
So you've been on my podcast. The podcast is one of the best ways for me because I've been in broadcasting since I was 15 years old. I was doing a pretend radio show in my bedroom when I was 10 years old, right? So like that, I've always loved broadcasting and I feel at ease and I feel like myself when I'm doing it. And so I noticed as I was running my digital marketing company years ago, I was totally just behind a computer running Facebook ads and I was miserable. It was working. It was one of those situations like where you find something that works, but you're miserable doing it. And I was like, oh no, what are that? Because I left broadcasting, which I loved, but um it was not fulfilling me in a professional sense as I felt like I was supposed to be doing something else, right? And so as I got into coaching, I once again felt like I was being this business person, like business Rob. I had to like have a suit coat on and I had to look and feel a certain way. And I felt very uncomfortable. So I wasn't showing up as me. So I wasn't getting clients. I felt a real disconnect within myself. And I realized at one point, I really need to get back to broadcasting. That's where I found myself when I was younger, and I'm supposed to still use it, but just use it in a different form. And so when I started the podcast, the Unstuck movement, right? The stories, because I've been very stuck at different points in my life. And I was like, I've gotten through these things. I've made my mess my message. I want to share that message, but I want to tell the stories of other people who have done that. And I want to do it in a way that uses my skill sets. And so for me, that's one of the big things I can point to. Starting the podcast allowed me to talk about things I love to talk about. I get to be myself. I get to have fun, but it also fits right into my business of leadership and communication and finding breakthrough. So that's one of the examples for myself. Now, if somebody else wants an example for them, how do they do that? Go back is a question I love to ask people. I'm going to ask you this right now.
Mhm.
Julia, what did you want to be when you were 10 years old? What did you want to do?
Paleontologist.
Have we talked about this?
I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know.
Wow, paleontologist. What was it about paleontology that you loved?
Oh, I freaking love dinosaurs.
No,
I still got the whole Carnegie collection in a box.
I love that. I love that. What do you think it was about the paleontology? But was there something about the discovery of it? Like, was there?
Um, I enjoyed the discovery of it, but I think that just dinosaurs are just such like creatures of mystery and big and like yeah, there's just so much mystery there and so much to learn and you don't really see them around anymore. And so
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, they're cool to look at and they're cool to think about and there's a lot of mystery around them and what's fine like people are always finding out something new. There's always something new that's being uncovered in paleontology.
but how does that play into who you are now and what you do?
Well, I probably say, well, I'm curious about this every other sentence. And that makes me curious. That makes me wonder. Um, so, I mean, I've never really thought about that before, but it's definitely crossed over into a lot of curiosity about the world and the people in it. And um, yeah, it's just finding out more about the world I live in.
Yeah, and that's what I was hearing. So, like you said, discovery and amazement and unraveling a mystery, right? And that's what That's what you do. That's what I do as a coach, like unraveling something and getting to the core of something. So I love that question because there's paleontology. I mean, you don't work with dinosaurs, but at the same time, there's elements of that you do in your career. So I challenge people, if you feel unaligned in what you're doing right now, what did you want to be? This doesn't work for everybody. I've had situations where it didn't work, but I'd say 95% of the time, what did you want to do when you were 10? When you're 10 years old, you're old enough to know what you love without needing a reason to love it. And you're young enough, the world hasn't, beaten creativity out of you yet. You're right in that sweet spot. And if you can find the essence of the thing that you wanted to do and incorporate that into what you do now, you can either incorporate it into your career, into your business, into your job, whatever that is, or you put a hobby on the side. You need to have that fulfillment because there's something there. And the people that you find that are the most happy, most satisfied, they've incorporated that unknowingly or unknowingly into their life. So I think that's a huge tool that we could use to uncover those things.
I love that. That's fun. That was a really fun
Yeah.
one. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
How do you see spirituality and leadership as interwoven?
Oh dear Lord. They're inseparable.
Mm,
I mean, I believe we are spiritual beings living in a physical existence. So the spiritual world is way more real than the material world. So the things that are unseen are really the things that are happening, and we're just kind of well, I shouldn't say that. Like this is happening, but the things that happen here are influenced by the spiritual world, and we are also influencing the spiritual world, right? So it's it would be a terrible mistake on our parts to discount the spiritual world, a terrible mistake on our parts to act like it doesn't exist, act like it's not real, and act like it doesn't have an impact on our lives. And I challenge everybody to go on a spiritual journey. Myself personally, I've been on a spiritual journey for years, probably well over a decade. That took me through all different phases. Oh, I was all over the place, and I ended up at Jesus, right? I ended up at the cross because I found that was the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. And I found that brought me the most clarity, the most answers, and the most peace. And so your question of how do those two connect in leadership? I point to Jesus as the greatest servant leader that ever lived. I mean, if you read the New Testament, the night he's about to die, the night before he's about to die, he's washing the feet of his disciples. The the creator of the universe shows up in on the earth in human form, fully God, fully man. And what does he do? He heals the sick, he blesses people, he prays for people, he washes the feet of the people that were following him. So I'm getting chills just saying it. It's just like I mean, talk about servant leadership. Like that is so if that's God and that's what he does,
mm,
then that's what we need to do. That's that's how we lead. The first is last and the last is first. If you're going to really truly be a leader, you have to humble yourself. And it's really hard to do. It can be, and that's why I know it's so good because it's such a positive message full of love, but it's also super hard to do to live that out. Like really, really hard from thought to action, right? From thoughts to feelings to action. It is so hard to live that out. And I just am very inspired by it because it's a never ending journey of being pruned and being trimmed, right? We're constantly being like, shedding layers of ourselves to get to that place. And I just find that to be incredible. If I'm going to be a great leader, then I have to I would want to follow the creation. I would want to follow the leader of the creator of all things. That just to me is like,
mm.
duh. So that's how I connect the two together.
I love that. I love that a lot. And just that to me, like so much of service and business is connected and in the same way, seeing service as this great spiritual act. And I mean, I see you doing tons of service. I mean, with your podcast, that's that is service right there. And showing up here, that's service as well.
Yeah,
And
I love telling people stories. I love hearing the stories of people, how to win friends and influence people. What is the one of the best books ever written on, leadership and connection and communication. And the core tenet of that is to be genuinely interested in other people. Like it doesn't get much better than that. When you're genuinely interested in other people and wanting to help them, then things just naturally happen to your benefit. It's a law.
Hmm. And how do you create a flow that feels great in leadership and in your business?
Well, that's a good question. How do I create a flow? I feel like a couple of weeks ago, I'll give you an example here. A couple of weeks ago, I was having a really, really hard couple of days. Actually, I had a really hard like week and a half. I fell into this depression and I was just really struggling. So we have a 3 month old. He's a little bit colicky, which means he cries a lot. And so that's really stressful. And I was having a lot of doubts as me as a dad, just like my capabilities as a dad, because I don't have boobs. I can't feed him milk. Like I can't milk him, and that's what pacifies him. That's what makes him happy. And so anytime that I have him, his name's Alexander. Anytime that I have him, I feel like ill-equipped to handle. And so that started trickling out into other parts of my life where I felt very out of control. And I noticed myself really trying to control so many things. I found myself kind of white knuckling all the things that were going on in my life. And I was driving to get a haircut. I dropped my son off at school. I was my 10-year-old son. I was driving to get a haircut, and I had like a half an hour before the haircut. And I'm always trying to fill my day with like everything. Like every second's got to be filled. I got to make sure I'm striving and achieving. It's exhausting. It's unnecessary, and I go through ebbs and flows with it. But I was sitting there waiting to get my hair cut in my car, and I was like, I'm just gonna like read my Bible and pray for a little bit. And I really tangibly felt God say to me, just let it go. Just just let go. And so I spent many years doing meditations and deep meditations and the tenets of that were let go, let the thoughts go, surrender your thoughts to God. Dr. David Hawkins, that was like his thing. His prayer always was, I surrender these thoughts to you, Lord. So he would just surrender every thought to God. And so I had not done that in a long time, and I felt God just tell me, just let it go. And so I did. I spent 20 minutes just every thought that came up, I just let it go because I've been trying to control things too much. I've been trying to, like I said, white knuckle this thing instead of letting things happen and transpire. And so from there, things have, not saying it's all been perfect because it hasn't, but from there, I've had a lot of breakthroughs in the sense that I'm not trying to force anything to happen. I'm letting things happen. And from letting things happen, I noticed that more positive things are happening. So instead of me, I was staying up until 11 o'clock at night, working while my wife's upstairs, and like I should be spending time with her. I shouldn't be sitting down here working till 11. My work day's done. It'll be here tomorrow when I wake up. So I started doing that, and I feel so much more peace. I feel so much more grace and just the way things are happening. Plus, doors keep opening, and you can't explain that sort of stuff. Like, but it's so true. You can't explain like the less you tr it's not like you're not working hard. You still have to work, right? But the less you try to force things to happen, the more things happen. Another example is last year. I was working, doing my coaching business, and my friend has a landscaping company, and I wasn't spending enough time outside. And I was like, hey man, can I come just like work a couple of days doing landscaping? And I was struggling to like get clients and get some momentum. And so for 3 months last summer, I went and did landscaping like 2 or 3 days a week. So I was totally disconnected from my job, wasn't doing anything. And over that summer, clients were coming to me, and I wasn't even trying to do anything. And I was like, how strange. How strange this is the way that it works. So the point is, from going back to your question, that's the main thing for me in finding the flow. I guess the flow is in letting go. And what are you gripping too tightly? And how could you let it go? And if you did let it go, take a look at like what happens from that.
Mm. And what inspires you in the work that you do?
This, conversations like this,
Mm.
make your mess your message. What inspires me is that we all go through really hard stuff in our life. And if we go through really hard stuff and we get through it and we don't use it to help other people, then what did I go through it for? I went through it like for nothing. I can't grow and then not share my growth with people. What a selfish thing to do. So that seems so wasteful. So if you go through something, you have to help other people with that. It doesn't have to be your profession. It could just be your hobby or the thing you do as volunteer or as service. But my thought was, I only have so much time. I might as well make money off the thing that I'm helping people with. That just a lot. And not that I don't also just help people for the heck of it, just because I love to help people. I do that too. But um, that's it for me. Make your mess your message. If you went through it, use it as a vehicle to serve other people. And that's why I love coaching too, is it's I'm never gonna get worse at this job. As long as I keep getting older and I keep going through things, then I have to get better. I'll be it's like a never-ending job. I feel like by the time I have a mentor, and he's really my inspiration. His name's Ray. Ray's, I believe, 86. He's been a coach as long as I've been alive. He was a coach in 1983 when coaching wasn't even a word. Like
Mm.
it wasn't even, I mean, it was like sports coaches, but never like a business coach or something like that. And he's as sharp as a whip. He's so intelligent and so insightful and has so much wisdom. And I look at him and I'm like, man, because he'll say to me, he's like, Rob, sometimes I feel like I'm just getting started. Like that is the coolest thing. Because we think about retirement, right? I'm going to retire when I'm 65. Like, why would I want to do that? Like, I want to keep getting better. So, it's like, wow, coaching, what a great job. It never has to end. And I don't want it to end. So, yeah,
Do you have any ways that we can stay connected to you? Do
no, there's just forget it.
Well, it was nice
I
seeing you.
deleted we'll see you. We'll catch you later. Yeah, I would love it if you want to chat. You can schedule a call with me, right? Any call scheduled with me is like a discovery call. There's no charge. So you can do that at leadimpacttransform.com. My company is Lit Coaching. The LIT is Lead Impact Transform. So you can go to the website, leadimpacttransform.com, schedule a call there. And if you want to just learn more about me, I got Facebook or LinkedIn, just search Rob Z. Wentz and friend me on there. It's probably a good way to connect also.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, I think that we all can have some sort of outlet for ourselves in our life. And I feel like a lot of people have negative outlets where I feel like a lot of people are just upset or angry and kind of want to lash out. And we don't have to do that, right? But if we turn inward towards ourselves and work on us, then we have nobody else to lash out at except for us. And we need to be kind to ourselves. So let's encourage people just to if you find yourself getting really, especially right now, right, right after the election and all of it was tense before, and it seems to be there's a lot of anger after. Shut it all off and just do some deep work on yourself. Sit with yourself for a while. Learn something new. Learn a hobby. Do something that makes you happy. Don't do things. If you find yourself just repeating the same angry thoughts in your head over and over again, do something about it. Talk to somebody. Start something new. Serve. Go out there and volunteer. Serve. Like get out of your own head. And also, Julia, I just love what you do. Your presence, your story, number one, your presence, how you approach, just the peacefulness that you come with, and the kind of like playfulness I feel like you come with is really inspiring and awesome. And I of all the podcasts I've done, you stand out as one of my favorites because of just seems like you do this with ease. And I don't know you personally really at all, but it seems like an ease that comes along with what you do and kind of like a grace with what you do that I find really inspiring. So thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you so much. That's really
Sure.
kind of you. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to connect and learn about people and what they're doing. Well, I'm Julia Jett, and this is the Spiritually Minded Entrepreneurs Summit. I'm so grateful that you joined me and Rob Z. Wentz from Lead Impact and Transform Lit Coaching. He's awesome. Check him out. Get your discovery call, and I will see you at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard. Thanks.
See ya.
All right. Okay. I got this.
Cool, good.